Today we're going to be starting our new lesson on solving exponential equations. So an equation is a term that has an equal sign in it. And to solve exponential equations, we're going to be using our laws of exponents, all of our exponent rules, and this property. So what this property says is if you have two of the same base that are equal to each other, then their exponents must be equal to each other. So our goal here is to get our equations to use the same base. So kind of like with our common base, we want to rewrite our equations so that they have the same base. So for number one, the way we're going to do this, if you look at our numbers, we have a 3 and a 27. We want to rewrite this using the same base. So we know that we can rewrite 27 as 3 to the third. But it's in the denominator. So if it's in the denominator and we want to move it up to the numerator, all we have to do is make our exponent negative. So notice how now that we have the same base, so 3 to the x equals 3 to the negative x. If you have the same base, that means our exponents must be equal to each other. So this is just x is equal to negative 3. And that's our answer for number one. Okay, let's look at number two now. So again, our first step is we're trying to get all of our bases to be the same. So we have a 9 and we have a 27. So we know we can rewrite both 9 and 27 using 3. So instead of a 9, I'm going to have 3 squared. I still have this x plus 1 on the outside. 27 I can rewrite as 3 to the third power. Now for this one, what do we need to do with our exponents? 2 and x plus 1. So those ones we're going to multiply. Be careful when you're multiplying. You have to multiply 2 times both the x and the 1. So make sure that when you're multiplying here, you're actually distributing. This is 3 to the 2x plus 2. This is still 3 to the third. So now that we have two of the same base, we know that our exponents must be equal to each other. So now we're left with 2x plus 2 equals 3. So really what we're doing here is just canceling out these two exponents. So we're bringing down our exponents. Same thing here. Okay, now we're just solving for x like any other equation. So minus 2 from both sides. 2x is equal to 1. Divide by 2, and we have x is equal to 1/2. That's my final answer. Okay, let's look at number 3. So again, we're first going to rewrite using the same base. 1/5. We can rewrite this as 5 to the negative 1 because it's in the fraction. It's in the denominator. We want to bring it to the top. This is 2 minus x on the outside, and we can rewrite 25 as 5 squared. Okay, so just like this one, we know these two have to be multiplied, but if we're multiplying, we want to distribute. So negative 1 times 2 is negative 2. Negative 1 times negative x gives us a positive x. This is 5 squared. So again, same base, we can just bring down the exponent, so negative 2 plus x equals 2. And again, we're just solving for x. So we're trying to get x by itself. To get rid of this minus 2, we're going to add 2 to both sides. So those can cancel. Leaves you with x is equal to 2 plus 2, which is 4. Okay, let's look at number 4. So this one is we have 4 to the x equals 2 to the x. So again, rewrite. We know 4 is 2 to the second power. And 2 we can just leave as 2 because it already has a base of 2. So these two exponents, the 2 and the x, we're going to multiply together to give us 2x. And this is just 2 to the x. And again, same base, so then we can just set the exponents equal to each other. 2x is equal to x. Let's get all the x's on one side, so subtract x from both sides. 2x minus x, they're like terms, so we can subtract. This leaves you with x. Over here, x minus x leaves you with nothing, so it just equals 0, and we're left with x is equal to 0. Okay, let's look at some equations now where we're going to have to now use some of our exponent rules. So if you look at number 5, so we want them all to be the same base. We have 2 to the third times 2 to the x. We can rewrite 16 as 2 to the fourth. Negative x out there. So for this one, we have two of the same base here. What am I going to do with my 3 and my x? I'm going to add them together. Whereas for this one, I have one of the same base. What do I do with the 4 and the negative x? Multiply. So 4 times negative x is negative 4x. So again, I now have the same base, so I can just bring down my exponents. I have 3 plus x is equal to negative 4x. Again, I'm trying to get x by itself, so I'm going to move this x with this one, so minus x. This leaves me with 3 is equal to negative 4x minus x. This is like you're subtracting 1x. So this gives me negative 5x. And again, if you're trying to get x by itself, divide by negative 5. This leaves you with x is equal to negative 3/5. So it doesn't matter where the negative sign is, 3 or the 5. Okay, let's look at number 6. So this is another exponent rule 1. Now my base is e. So they already have the same base, they're e. But what am I going to do with these two exponents, the x and the 2? I multiply them, right? So if I multiply these, x times 2 is 2x. Whereas on this side, I have e to the x squared. Okay, so again, I have the same base, so if they're the same base, I'm just bringing down the exponent. So 2x is equal to x squared. And to solve this, I need to bring everything onto one side. So what I'm going to do is subtract 2x from both sides, and this is going to have 0. These two are not like terms, so I can't combine them, so I'm just going to write it as x squared minus 2x. To solve this problem, what I need to do is factor. So what can I take out of both of these terms? I could take out an x. When I take out an x, this leaves me with x and minus 2. And I'm going to have two answers for this one. I'm going to separate them into x is equal to 0 and x minus 2 is equal to 0. So either x is equal to 0 or x minus 2 equals 0. So x equals 0 is one of my answers. If I add 2, x is equal to positive 2 is my other answer. So really these are like my roots, or my zeros, right? So 0 and 2 are my two answers for this one. So if they're not like terms, I have to factor. Let's do one last problem, then we're going to practice. So right now we have a base of 8, 4, and 2, so I'm first going to rewrite everything using the same base. So 8 I know is 2 to the 3rd power. I have an x squared. 4 I know is 2 squared. There's an x. And 2 is just 2 to the 1st power, so I'm just going to leave that as 2 to the 1. Okay, so what am I going to do with the 3 and the x squared? I want to multiply those together. So 3 times x squared gives me 3x squared. What am I going to do with the 2 and the x? Again, multiply them together. So this is 2x. So this is still 2 to the 1. Now I have two of the same base that are being divided. So what am I going to do with these two exponents? 3x squared. I'm going to subtract 2x. And this gives me 2 to the 1. So again, I have two of the same base, so these two can just go away. I'm just bringing down the exponents. I have 3x squared minus 2x is equal to 1, right, because 2 to the 1. And now again, this is a quadratic. I have an x squared and I have an x. I can't combine those. I'm going to have to make one side equal to 0, so let me solve for 0. So I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides. This is 3x squared minus 2x minus 1 equals 0. So this is now a trinomial. How am I going to solve this problem? We're going to use the x box. So yep, back to x box for factoring. So a times c, this is negative 3. This is negative 2. What multiplies to give you negative 3 adds to give you negative 2. We're going to have a negative 3 and a positive 1. Don't forget the box because your a is not equal to 1. There's a number in front of x squared, so we have to use the box. So a goes into the first left-hand side box. Negative 1 goes down here. The two numbers we got from our x go here. And so I'm trying to figure out what multiplies. So 3x squared, I know one of them is going to be 3x, one of them is going to be x. This is the one that's going to be 3x since negative 3 is divisible by 3. So this must just be x. So x times what gives me positive 1. This is 1. 3x times what gives me negative 3x. This is a negative 1. So when I factor this out, I have 3x plus 1 and x minus 1. Those are my factors. And to get my answer now, I'm going to have two different answers. I'm just going to set both of these equal to 0. So 3x plus 1 equals 0, minus 1, minus 1. I got 3x is equal to negative 1. Divide both sides by 3. And that leaves me with x is equal to negative 1/3. And I also have x minus 1 is equal to 0. So plus 1 plus 1, and I have x is equal to 1. So my two answers for this problem, yes, it's a little bit of a long one, it's x is equal to negative 1/3 and x is equal to 1.